bespoke radio for the masses.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
If the game is rigged, change the game. Game changer.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This is Fade to Black with your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
I need your help to get to the year 1985.
You're listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
All right, good evening. Fade to Black. Bespoke radio for the masses. Yeah, how you doing? Today's Tuesday, January 25th, 2022. 25 days into the new year. Only 340 days left. Let's do this, man. We are live from a bunker somewhere in the middle of nowhere. A total undisclosed location, but it is beautiful in here. That's right. I would like to welcome everybody listening all around the world, all across the United States. Hither and thither, to and fro, back and forth, up and down, east and west, north and south, far and near. This is Fade to Black for KJCR, the Game Changer, and UnX Networks. I am your host, Jimmy Church. What is cracking, everybody? How you doing? All right. Tonight, very special first-time guest, Rick Levine joins us. Full night of astrology from the best. Rick Levine is here. We're going to be talking about astrology and 2022. Get ready for all of that tomorrow night. Giorgio Tsoukalos. Man. Giorgio is back, and I can't even believe I'm saying this. We're going to be talking about Ancient Aliens Season 18. Oh, man. So that is tomorrow night. Thursday is another Fader night with open lines all night long. And looking forward to that. What a great week on the show. Last night, the AMA, that was so much fun. And I got to tell you, I didn't get to all the questions and things, but we need to do more of these. I really enjoyed last night, and the best questions yet, and they're always great, but man, last night, it was just a spectacular night. So much fun. And so what a great week on the show. Tonight, Rick Levine is here. Tomorrow night, Giorgio. Thursday, Fader night. And I want to remind everybody what is coming up, and that is the Conscious Life Expo. This is coming up February 4th through the 7th at the LAX Hilton. I will be hosting all weekend long. Friday night, we'll do the Ancient Secrets panel in the Plaza Ballroom, and that'll be Friday night. I'll be introducing and doing introductions all weekend long, and we've got our booth there. And then Saturday night, for me, the highlight of the weekend, I will be, looking at something just caught my eye. Saturday night is Expo's Got Talent. And if you're going to be at the Conscious Life Expo, that's where you are going to be Saturday night, right there in the La Jolla Ballroom. And that's going to be just amazing. And the UFO panel with Serena, it's just a great weekend. And tonight's guest, Rick Levine, will also be at the Conscious Life Expo. I have got links for tickets and information in the video description box below if you're going to be in Los Angeles, if you can make it. I will be on Thursday night. I'm going to give away some tickets to the Conscious Life Expo. I'm going to be giving away pairs of tickets on Thursday night. Okay, so if you're in Los Angeles, if you can make it out and come out and spend the weekend with us, that would be great. I'm going to give away tickets on Thursday night. Okay, all right. Let's. I don't know if you guys saw Lisa's pictures of Pegasus, her new crystal skull. They are absolutely incredible. Lisa, wow, what an amazing drive back from Sedona. And she went out to hang out with some friends, do a little crystal skull ceremony, some action. She picked up her new crystal skull Pegasus from EinsteinTheCrystalSkull.com and Carolyn Ford. And I want you to visit EinsteinTheCrystalSkull.com and use the promo code Jimmy for 10% off of your crystal skull order today. And there you go. The pictures. Oh, man. This big. It's like this big. Pegasus, incredible. Follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. All right, follow me on Twitter right there at JChurchRadio. The Sandbox is hashtag F2B on Twitter. And any questions right there, hashtag F2BQ on Twitter. Hello to everybody that's watching and listening all around the world. Let's get to the breaking news. Okay. I'm just going to share this with you. Now, we're talking maybe 1 billion years, so I don't think there's any reason to freak out yet. But, and I talk about this all the time, when do we build those interstellar ships and blow this popsicle stand, right? Well, it turns out Earth's core may be cooling on a shorter time schedule than we've been led to believe, according to scientists from the Swiss University ETH Zurich and the Washington, D.C.-based Carnegie Institution of Science. That means less time before our blue planet turns into a lifeless new version of Mars. The core is cooling 1.5 times faster than assumed. And if that number doesn't sound very big, consider that it's literally 50% higher. That directly affects the lifespan of our planet as a livable place. There's no way to pin down an exact timeline of this cooling, but Earth, like other rocky planets like, Mercury, Mars, is cooling and becoming inactive much faster than expected. Wow. All right. Axiom Space. Axiom Space is in the news. Axiom Space plans to build a movie studio module for the International Space Station by 2024. Space Entertainment Enterprise, which is co-producing Tom Cruise's upcoming unnamed space movie, has commissioned Houston-based Axiom Space to build an inflatable space station module that contains a production studio by December of 2024. The facilities will enable development, production, recording, broadcasting, and live streaming of content. The company intends to produce its own content and events in the module while also making it available to third parties. That's crazy town right there. A 190-year-old tortoise named Jonathan has become the oldest tortoise ever. And at the same time, the oldest living land animal right now on Earth. Jonathan is estimated to have been born in 1832, which means he turns 190 years old this year in 2022. Guinness World Records announced all of this back on January 12th. To put things into context, Jonathan was born before Queen Victoria ascended the British throne in 1837. Jonathan lives like the king that he is on St. Helena Island in the South Atlantic Ocean. It is just incredible. And for your straight out of Black Mirror news of the day, are you ready? David Colombo, a 19-year-old German security researcher who somehow managed to gain remote access to dozens of Teslas. That's right. dozens of Teslas spread around the world, has just spilled the beans on how he did it. In a Medium post, Colombo provided an in-depth accounting and timeline of how he could remotely run commands like adjusting a vehicle's stereo volume, manipulating doors and windows, and even engaging Tesla's keyless driving tool without drivers even knowing he was doing it. He also revealed how he was able to gain access to the vehicles through a security flaw in an open source logging tool called TeslaMate. That's right. He found over 25 Teslas from 13 countries within hours, from Germany, Belgium, Finland, Denmark, the UK, the United States, Canada, Italy, Ireland, France, Austria, and Switzerland. The write-up was part of Colombo's official responsible disclosure report that he submitted to Tesla's security team. Black Mirror. Could you imagine, right? Driving down the freeway, right? Driving down the freeway, and your windows are opening, closing, doors are opening and closing. You're walking up to the car parking lot. It's starting itself. It drives away. He could even steal the car. Think about that. Black Mirror. All right. Let's get this show cracking. Happy birthday to today. Adam and the Ants bassist Gary Tibbs. Today is 63. Great bass player. Guitarist Andy Cox of The Beat and Fine Young Cannibals. Today is 65 years old. Our dead guy's birthday today is, moment of silence please, Antonio Jobim, 1927 to 1994. Jobim is considered to be one of the most important composers of the 20th century, and that is not a joke. Jobim is the father of bossa nova, and in 1965, the album Get Gilberto was the first jazz album to win the Grammy Award for Album of the Year. It also won for Best Jazz Instrumental Album, Individual or Group, and for Best Engineered Album, Non-Classical. That album had The Girl from Ipanema, one of the greatest songs of all time, which also won the Grammy Award for Record of the Year. On December 8th, 1994, while recovering from surgery at Mount Sinai Hospital in New York City, he had a cardiac arrest caused by a pulmonary embolism. And 2 hours later, another cardiac arrest, from which he died. He was just 67 years old. Happy birthday, Jobim. If you ever get a chance, go and watch the Frank Sinatra Jobim videos from the Frank Sinatra show. Incredible. On this day in history, 1961, President John F. Kennedy becomes the first U.S. president to hold a live televised news conference. That didn't happen until 1961. That's incredible. That's your OTD. Fader fact. All right, here you go. This is a good one. They're all good, but this one's special. Fader fact. NASA only uses 15 digits of pi for calculating interplanetary travel. At 40 digits, you could calculate the circumference of a circle the size of the visible universe to an accuracy equal to the diameter of a single hydrogen atom. And that is your Fader fact. Think about that. Tonight, very special guest, Rick Levine joins us. First-time guest. Tonight's an extraordinary night, and we are going to do a full night of astrology tonight with the very best astrologer in the world. Rick Levine is with us. Tomorrow night, Giorgio Tsoukalos is here. He is back, and yes, I keep saying it. We're going to be talking about season 18 of Ancient Aliens. how did we get here? It seems like I mention this every time that Giorgio is on the show, but I specifically remember the first episode of Ancient Aliens, and which I ended up recording on my DVR. It was 2 hours. I think the first 3 episodes were 2 hours each. And I watched that first episode. I watched them all over and over and over again. I could not believe a show like this was on television. And I felt at that time that this show was like made for me, Puma Punku, right? And it was shortly after that. It had to have been that month, right in there. They got Giorgio to speak at Los Angeles MUFON, Steve Murillo, and the crew over there. And I was like, that's that dude from Ancient Aliens. And I went out and checked that out. And this was obviously before it all broke loose. And I mean, to go from that and that memory to where we are today, what a journey. Tomorrow night, we'll be talking about all of that with Giorgio Tsoukalos and what's coming up and what's already aired for season 18. We'll be doing all of that tomorrow night with Giorgio. Thursday night's another Fader night with open lines all night long. Now it's time for me to hit this River Moon coffee. RiverMoonWellness.com. All right. Over the last week, I decided to really confuse the Google, Facebook advertising AI that is constantly scraping my searches. That's right. I'm now searching for the most insane things I can think of. No normal searches out of me. Time travel, right? No searches like that. Not this week. And as the AI tries to figure out who I am and what they can sell me or how to turn my info into dollars, well, I thought I'd give them a little something to work with. So, here are my top 10 searches for the week. And I need to stress, I have searched these top 10 over and over again. Are you ready? Number 10, the best way to create stomach acid and ruin sleep for fun. That's right. Now, as I go down my list, you can search for the same thing. You want to change what's popping up? Follow my lead. Number 9, how to make perfect white teeth yellow fast. That's number 9. Number 8, the best place to gamble in Utah over the Christmas holidays. Yeah. Number 7, I have perfect skin. I need wrinkles. That's right. I've searched these over and over again. Number 6, how to close all of my credit cards and ruin my credit now. Think about it. Number 5, the best way to get rid of perfect abs or six-pack. Number 4, how to easily lose money fast. That's right. Now, I want you to think about what pops up in your feed. What pops up in your feed? You know, credit cards and under eye creams, right? Antacids. Oh, man. Implants, teeth. That's right. Just go with the opposite. Just go with the opposite, whatever it is. Number 3, I'm too smart. Best way to lower my IQ. That's a good search term. Number 2, I have perfect hair and scalp. I need dandruff. And my number one search term in Google this week, penis shortening. That's right. How to confuse the AI bots. What are they going to do with this? What are they going to do? I'm going to keep everybody updated on the new advertising that shows up for me. And I haven't seen, normally, this is going to be very interesting. There's no question about it. And normally, when you do a search term or you do a purchase on Amazon, you immediately, right? Check this out. I went and downloaded this. I'm going to just show this to the camera. This is ring sizes. I literally downloaded a ring size chart, okay, for rings. I did that last week. I downloaded a ring size chart, and within minutes, because I was done, I printed it out, I put it on the table. Within minutes, my advertising, top to bottom, anywhere I go, is rings. It was instantaneous. I wasn't shopping for a ring. My search term was ring size chart. Downloadable ring size chart. That was my search term. It was within minutes. And I just got angry. I just thought I mean, we all know this goes on, but I mean, holy crap, right? And it hasn't stopped. So I started this. I've been copying and pasting these search terms and popping them in, and I haven't gotten any strange. I haven't had a company try to sell me teeth yellowing cream. Hasn't happened yet, but I'm assuming that toothpaste is out there somewhere on the market. I mean, as we all know, every single day, our personal files are updated. Megabytes and megabytes and megabytes and megabytes of information goes into your personal file. Every single day, it's updated, it's compiled, it's sold, it's resold, it's traded, it's a commodity, right, to the highest bidder, right? And the question is that I have, who would want this guy, right? Who is the guy searching for this stuff? It's going to be interesting. And I'm serious. Who wants this guy? And the confusing part for the AI, they've got something established on me and established on you already. And suddenly these search terms start going in. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be confusing. They're not going to know what to do. I'm going to keep you posted. I thought it was fun. Maybe I should post the list so all of you can just copy and paste it. And we'll get some trends going. Right? We should hashtag I need dandruff, right? Hashtag I want yellow teeth. I'm serious. We should get this going. It's a community effort, That's why this is Fade to Black, and I've got the best audience in the world. You guys are the best. Tonight on the show, Rick Levine joins us. First-time guest and the best astrologer in the world is with us this evening. Tomorrow night, Giorgio Tsoukalos. He is back, and we are going to be talking about Season 18 of Ancient Aliens. Thursday is another Fader night with open lines all night long. I'll be right back after this short break with our guest, Rick Levine. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. This is Fade to Black on the Game Changer and UnX Networks. Race Hobbs. Stay with us. I'll be right back.
This is Nicole Church, daughter of you-know-who, and you're listening to Fade to Black on JimmyChurchRadio.com and the Game Changer Network.
You're listening to Jimmy Church and Fade to Black on the X.
You're listening to Jimmy Church, Fade to Black.
Fade to Black will now pause for alien identification.
The station that talks the net.
Introducing the Game Changer blend from River Moon Coffee that delivers a customized blend made specifically for the Fadernauts. If the game is rigged, change the game. It's a bolder cup with some bite. Game Changer is the coffee of choice for those that prefer an organic dark roast that is slightly lighter and milder, but it's still dark. With wild notes of pecans and chocolate with a rich, balanced, full-bodied cup that is roasted to perfection for a great coffee to start your day, as an after-dinner coffee or anywhere in between. Artisan, small batch roasted to perfection. USDA certified organic, all River Moon coffee is freshly roasted and packaged in the USA. Just go to rivermooncoffee.com or click on the banners over on our site and use the promo code F2B Blend for 15% off of your order today. rivermooncoffee.com.
This is the only way forward.
This is Fade to Black. Make contact.
This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and you can get our podcast for just $2 per month. All you have to do is click on the podcast banner over at jimmychurchradio.com.
Hi, folks. It's troubling times, and fear is pushing emotions, which in turn pushes health the wrong direction. Do you ever get an ache because life is uneasy? Try Life Change Tea at GetTheTea.com. Life Change Tea works on your digestive tract, helping to move food through quicker and comfortably so your health is spot on. Life Change Tea may not help with world issues, but it will help with your digestive issues. A glass a day helps keep the intruders away. So, change your life today. Log on to GetTheTea.com. That's GetTheTea.com. If your health game is off, get on by ordering Life Change Tea. GetTheTea.com. And while you're on our site, look around at the great non-GMO organic supplements. And if you're a sales shopper, go to our specials page and see what's for you. I've been drinking the tea for 12 years, and I'm sure glad for its health benefits. Again, that's GetTheTea.com. GetTheTea.com. The tea that makes you go.
The new KUNXDB, the UnX Network, bringing you the best in paranormal programming in premium high-definition streaming audio and video. Log on to the network at unxnetwork.com and check out the growing lineup of programs, including Jimmy Church, Whitley Strieber, Micah Hanks, and many more. Sign up for the free UnX newsletter, follow the UnX blog, or pick up the latest edition of the UnX magazine. Be sure to follow us on Facebook and Twitter. So check us out at unxnetwork.com. Tap the show page and the calendar so you never miss your favorite live shows and podcasts. We are your portal for all things paranormal. The X, explaining the unexplained.
9 out of 10 geneticists agree.
Fade to Black.
is not your father's radio show on the Game Changer Radio Network.
Hi, this is Rob Reiner from Anvil, and you're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com.
What's up? I'm Chris. What up? This is Kyle Massey, and you're listening to Jimmy Church Radio.
All right, welcome back. Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, Rick Levine joins us for the first time. Astrology 2022, maybe even beyond. Tomorrow night, Giorgio Tsoukalos is back with us. Going to be talking about Ancient Aliens Season 18. Thursday night is another Fader night with open lines all night long. Tonight's all about Rick Levine. Now, he is joining us for the first time, and we're going to do a full evening. I want to learn more about astrology, what it is, and what Rick may be able to tell us about the days and the year ahead. I want to get into all of that. He is a widely respected voice in the global astrology community. He has a special gift for bridging the gaps between astrology and spirituality, science, and religion. The head and the heart, co-founder of StarIQ.com, founding trustee of Kepler College. For 8 years, co-author of Barnes & Noble's Your Astrology Guide. Every month, tens of thousands of astrology students from around the world view his teachings on YouTube. For nearly 20 years, Levine's daily horoscopes have reached millions of readers online. Rick is as comfortable writing mass-market sun sign astrology as he is pushing the technical and theoretical envelopes of the profession. Every month, astrology students from around the world get into his teachings. Now, he's a wizard by day. I can tell that by his shirt, by the way. A net junkie by night, and denies that time-traveling aliens have implanted microprocessors into his cerebral cortex. And I would like to welcome for the first time to Fade to Black, Rick Levine. Rick, good evening, my man. How you doing?
Oh, I'm doing great, but I hope I haven't just died because that was such an awesome introduction. Things that you say to people once they're gone.
Yeah, I know. You know, and this is the deal. Let's get the first-time guest disclaimer out of the way. Rick, which it's just you and I sitting on my couch having a conversation as friends, and where that conversation starts, it starts. Where it ends, but we're going to end as friends. There you go. First time disclaimer out of the way. You ready to go?
Ready to go.
First question out of the gate. Where can I get one of those shirts?
Well, you know, it's actually the most asked question I get on my YouTube channel. And the honest answer is, let's see, how do I say this? You can't.
Yes. I felt that coming. I get these. They are hand painted and handmade. I teach in Indonesia, in Bali, every year, and every time I go. There's a workers-owned textile collective, and I have them make this shirt to my pattern. But they're all, because they're handmade, everyone's different. They're all different colors, and I have these in red, blue, green, black, orange, long sleeve, short sleeve, linen, button down, collared, but they're mine. Yeah, every photo that I've seen of you over the years, you've got the pattern. You know, you've got that crazy cool lightning bolt, but it's always a different shirt. I'm like, man, Rick has got it going on.
Think of Steve Jobs' black turtleneck or Gary Zuckerberg's, gray T-shirts. Mine is like that, except I have to think of what color am I wearing.
Yeah, so cool. Now, I want to, do a pretty deep dive on astrology, and I have astrologers on the show, and I've got friends that are astrologers, but I usually go into a different direction. But tonight with you, it's an opportunity for us, and I've been watching the email and the comments about the excitement about having you on the show. And I want to actually pick your brain on a few things so I can clarify and learn something tonight about astrology. And that, just saying that, puts the pressure on. And when you are a leader in the community like you are, do you feel that kind of pressure? Do you have to choose your words carefully?
No. I've actually been doing this long enough that I'm quite comfortable with it, and it comes very naturally. I enjoy this conversation. I enjoy this conversation, whether it's being observed by a few 100,000 people at once, or whether I'm sitting on an airplane next to a nun and having the conversation with her. Doesn't matter. I love having the conversation, and I'm almost always able to bridge whatever apparent gaps there might be. And so, no, I don't choose my words carefully. What comes out, comes out.
How did you fall into this?
I don't know. And if I ever figure out how, that means I'll have a way out.
Right.
Actually, as a youngster, I had the privilege of having a really good education, grade school up. I was lucky. I went to a public school in a small town in upstate New York where there was a college, and so a lot of the teachers and so on, knew they were teaching. They were kind of like in the college environment, even though it was grade school and high school. I began studying music from second grade onward. I'm not a performing musician, although these days I can pick up any kind of straight flute and make the best of it. Straight flutes meaning like penny whistles or recorders or Native American flutes and that kind of instrument. But I mean, I took violin from second grade all the way through high school orchestra, and piano and trombone through high school marching band. And this might sound peripheral, but actually, when I say that I'm an astrologer, I'm actually a musician listening to and interacting with hyper, extremely, very low frequencies that are so low frequency, we can't hear them with our ears. But the music of the spheres is something that's very real. It's not just a concept. We'll get into that a little bit later. But you add the music background and theory to my love of language and science and math. I went to college to be a geometry teacher. And here I am 50 years later, a geometry teacher.
Right.
Because astrology is about spatial relationships and geometry. And so you combine that science and math, and also from, probably fifth grade is when I think I discovered UFOs, Project Blue Book at that time, Condon Report. But reading about UFOs and psychic stuff and hypnotism and astrology and numerology, and it was like a smorgasbord. It was like there were so many things that were out there to learn about that everyone said I shouldn't go near, which of course that's the way to get me into it. Is don't do that. Okay, I'm doing that.
Right.
And so it really wasn't until I hit college that astrology became an interest. But it was, quite frankly, I just assumed that I would go on and get my PhD. I wanted to go to the Jungian Institute, the whole Freudian, Jungian depth psychology. This was the 60s when I was in college. And so I really did have, a 60s experience in college, sex, drugs, rock and roll, protesting. I mean, that was where I lived for, 4 years of my life. And yet it was in that period of time, while I was plowing my way through the original writings of Carl Jung, someone gave me a book by an Americanized Frenchman named Dane Rudhyar. And the title of the book was The Astrology of Personality. And the subtitle, although I'm not going to get it exactly right, I'm looking up, it's not on the bookshelf in front of me. The subtitle was something like A Critical Analysis of Astrology in Light of 20th Century Psychology and Philosophy.
Sounds about right.
Basically a deep dive into the interrelationships between the Western academic tradition, culminating in Jungian psychology and astrology. And at that point in time, I went, oh my God, this isn't just like some parlor game that works. This is like, there's real stuff here. And that was 50 some odd years ago. And I've never lost interest since. And in fact, I'm more fascinated, more interested, and there's more for me to learn now than there was 50 years ago when I stepped into this.
When you were starting your research into this, you're looking at, the science and psychology side from, noted academics. And then you have the other side, which is, the daily horoscopes that are in the newspapers that we're all too familiar with. Were you looking at the two of them and comparing? Are those apples and oranges? And what did that mean to you when you're looking at the popular culture side too as well?
Well, first of all, in the spirit of full astrological disclosure, I should mention that for 17 years, I wrote a daily horoscope column for 12 signs every day. At its biggest, it was online always. I was getting, tens of millions of people reading it every day. My column was on Google when they were doing content, AOL, MySpace when they were something. LA Times carried my column for years.
That's right.
So I'm not going to sit here and kind of set aside the daily horoscope columns as garbage. And yet there's a distinct difference between daily horoscope writing and the true body of astrology and astrology knowledge, number one. And number two, there's a great difference between a daily horoscope column written by an astrologer who is trying to do real work versus so many newspapers just grab someone off the floor and go, we need someone to write the astrology column, but I don't know astrology. Don't worry about it. Read a few and make the shit up.
Right.
And so it's not a place where you can go and rely on it to be accurate. But I think one of the reasons for my success in writing daily horoscopes was I approached it as a way to reach people who were not astrologers, but might be intrigued or have their interests piqued. And it's been said that sun sign astrology, which is what you would call daily horoscopes, the I'm a Taurus, you're a Vegetarius. No, that's not a real sign. But that whole sun sign astrology approach, it's been said that sun sign astrology is the gateway drug to real astrology. Many people get into astrology because they start reading stuff and they go, you know what? There's something different about a Capricorn compared to a Scorpio. And I know 3 Capricorns and they're all they're very different individually, but they have this thing that I can see that is Capricorn versus this person or that person. And so there's something to those generalizations. But those generalizations are just the tip of an iceberg that is not at all just about what's your sign.
I can see. I didn't really take it seriously when I was a kid, but I can see now the traits in the signs in individuals, and I never used to take that serious. And I used to think I'm a Libra. Right? Born October 10th. I'm a Libra. And my older sister, she's a Leo. She's Scorpio. She's October 28th, right? Okay. 2 vastly different individuals. She is a Scorpio. And I started to think that the label, I should say, of being a Libra is something that I can't control. It is who I am. And now I'm taking it very, very serious. And I see a Virgo. I see a Leo. And I understand.
See, now what you're saying is all true and valid, but part of the problem is that saying that you're a Libra is only saying something about the relationship between the Earth and the sun. What I mean by that is very simple astronomy. The Earth goes around the sun once a year. That's what we call a year. If anyone tells me, oh, I don't believe in astrology, I go, oh, cool. You mean you don't use a calendar? How do you get by? Because a calendar is astrology 101. That's what it is. We can come back to that a little bit later too. But the idea that on your birthday every year, the Earth has come around the sun again and is in the same relative position to the cosmos as it was on the day you were born. And so we look up and we say that the sun is moving through a certain constellation or is in a certain area in the sky. And then we say, I'm an Aries or I'm a Libra or whatever sign it is. But the thing is that not only does the Earth go around the sun, making it look like the sun moves, but the moon is going around the Earth, and Mercury and Venus and Mars and Jupiter and Saturn and Uranus, Neptune and Pluto, and 200,000 other things that NASA tracks are all going around the sun, and they all contribute to the complexity that we are. And that's why you can have a Libra that seems more like a Scorpio than a Libra, because it depends on where all these other planets are. But the archetypes hold true.
Now, somebody once said to me, and I don't even know if this is right, but somebody said to me, Jimmy, you're a Libra with the Leo rising. And now, does that mean anything? And what does it mean?
Yeah, it does. And part of the thing about astrology, it's almost like computer programming, in as much as is that there are a lot of programmers who don't ever want anyone who's not a programmer to learn the language, because there's something about the power that you have when you can wield a language to make stuff happen on a computer. And I think the same is sometimes true with astrology, that there are a lot of astrologers who want to tell you what they know, but they don't want to tell you how you can know the same thing on your own without having to be bothered to call the astrologer every day. And we have jargon that comes into the picture that separates people from what they could know, making them sure they'll never know this, because what the hell is a rising sign, an ascendant, what's a trine or a sextile? All this stuff is just meaningless to me. I need to go find my astrologer. I can't figure any of this out. A rising sign is really simple. The sun doesn't ever rise. The Earth spins it into view.
Yes.
But we call it a sunrise. Bucky Fuller said that we should call it a sunsight, and at nighttime we should call it a sunclipse, because language itself is misleading.
That's right.
But every day the sun rises. Every day the moon rises. Every day Mercury rises. Every day Venus rises. Every day every planet rises. We don't see them like we see the sunrise every day. If it's a full moon, we might catch the full moon rising, but other than that, it's not something we're attuned to. The rising sign is the sign that is on the eastern horizon at any given moment. So if you are a Libra, and if you were born at sunrise, you would be a Libra with Libra rising, because the planets live in signs. However, if you are in fact a Leo rising, Leo comes before Libra, which would lead me to think that you were born after midnight, but before dawn. Because first Leo would rise for about 2 hours, because there are 12 signs and 24 hours in a day.
Mm-hmm.
And then after Leo rose for a couple of hours, and this varies by sign, by time of year, but after Leo rises, then Virgo rises, and then Libra rises. So if you're a Libra with the Leo rising, chances are you were born 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. or something like that, approximately.
You're freaking me out right now. But
I'm sorry, say again?
I said you're freaking me out right now.
But
And
that's how simple it is.
Right. Now, what would, just in my instance, and this is for the audience trying to understand, what would, how would that influence me and change me from being, a pure Libra with a Libra rising?
Sure. So every point in astrology, whether they're real points or calculated points, like an ascendant is a calculated point. It's based upon great circles and where the ecliptic, where the planets going around the Earth intersect the horizon of the Earth and so on. Where each planet and each point carries what Jung called an archetype. It's actually a Greek word. And it's really like a symbol set of characteristics that we see in myths. They're symbols, so that if you see, for example, a picture, of a magician in the tarot deck, that a magician will bring something to mind because it has an archetype of what that means. That is just a complex combination of images, of myths, of symbols. And so the sun sign is kind of what fuels your furnace. It's the light at the center. So if you're a Libra, it means that your being is lit up from that Libra archetype. And in just a sentence or two, we could say that Libras are about relationships because it has to do with the scales and putting things into balance. Does that mean that every Libran, is well balanced and in harmony? No, because it means it's about trying to find that relationship of self to other, me to you. As a radio host, that's the Libra in you that acts as the fulcrum point between your guest and the audience. That's a Libran kind of a thing. Does that mean that every Libra is a radio host? No, right. But they may be a psychologist or a counselor or a diplomat or a soldier, because even a general is trying to figure out that relationship between my army and your army, so to speak. So the archetypes can be very complex, but the sun is basically who you are, how your furnace is fueled. Now, hang on just one quick second. The moon in a chart is not who we are. It's how we respond. It's what we feel in our gut. And the ascendant is how we seem to appear to other people. So if you're a Leo rising, you appear to other people more like a Leo than a Libra. So people might think you're more about being on stage. Leos are the presenters. It's the presenters. It's the person who's giving the Toastmaster speech at the beginning. Leos are dramatic. Leos are self-expressive. Leos can't help themselves. They have to express from the inside out. Now, does that mean you're a Leo? No. It means that the way you interact with the outer world, you interface with the outer world as a Leo. But the fact of the matter is, you're just seeking balance.
Your ability to orate and put this into something that I can understand along with this audience, that's truly a gift. When did you, I've just got 2 minutes before the break, but I have to ask, when did you figure out that you wanted to teach and to give this gift back?
Well, I have to say, like many astrologers, I feel like I never learned it. I feel like I remembered it. It's, for some people, it's like a calling. It's like picking up a musical instrument and not having been taught and go, oh, I can make this sound the way I hear. But it was early on in my early 20s when I realized that even though I was still learning it, I was really good at explaining what it was that I was learning, because people make things so much more complicated than they are. And then you add in the fact that most, or many, I want to say most astrologers don't really understand the social, cultural, historic grounding that astrology has. And so they sound woo-woo or more out there than astrology really is. Astrology is really a central core to the development of the intellect from history, the beginnings of history onward.
Is it dangerous? Again, just a quick question. Is it dangerous for people to base their life around astrology?
Let me answer that by asking you, is it dangerous to base your life around looking at a map of where you live?
Yeah, that's a great answer.
And the answer is, it sure as hell could be.
Yes.
It depends on where you think you're going.
Sure.
Astrology is just a map. And it's how you interpret it. And there are many people who already know how to interpret it before they even know what the damn map is.
Right.
And those people, I think it is dangerous, because astrology is just, and I'm going to use the word just, it's just a map. I mean, I've devoted my life largely to astrology. I have certainly other areas of interest in my life. But the fact of the matter is, it's not the only way to get to where you're going. You can get to where you're going without a GPS.
Yes, and you can choose a different road, right?
And the person who's driving without a GPS may have a much richer experience because they're discovering it rather than listening to some lady in a box telling them when to make rights and lefts.
Yeah, sure. I have a friend, Serena Wright Taylor, great astrologers, and an amazing friend. And there has been a few times where she has had a conversation with me about, the week, the month ahead, and just things to consider. And I'm listening to Serena, and she doesn't know anything about my life or my personal life or what's going on in my head or things that are going on in my daily. But it would kind of freak me out. Yeah. And now, did I alter? No. But certainly being aware is pretty cool, and that's the thing that I respect so much about astrology, is just to respect and just to be aware. That's all. It's really simple. Let's take our break right here. This is Fade to Black. Our guest tonight, Rick Levine. Been waiting for this show, everybody, so stay right there. When we come back, I want to talk a little bit about the history of astrology and some of the presentations that Rick is also going to be doing out at the Conscious Life Expo. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. This is Fade to Black on the UnX and Game Changer Networks. We'll be right back after this short break. Stay with us.
This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network.
Your 1 million gigawatt paranormal powerhouse, KUNX-DB, VX.
This is Billy Carson with ForbiddenKnowledge.tv. Forbidden Knowledge TV has just reached its 1-year anniversary. That's right. 1 year. And as a show of appreciation, we are giving all new subscribers a free 30-day trial of ForbiddenKnowledge.tv. That's 30 days to binge watch thousands of movies, documentaries, conferences, workshops, lectures, yoga classes, meditation courses, and so much more. So log on to ForbiddenKnowledge.tv from your computer or mobile device, or get the Forbidden Knowledge TV app on Apple TV, Roku, Amazon, iTunes, or Google Play today, and use coupon code 30daysfree. That's coupon code 30 days free on ForbiddenKnowledge.tv today.
Because you never got that pony you always wanted. Damn it. Jimmy Church and Fade to Black on the Game Changer Network.
Listen, I know, and you know, that you've always wanted your first crystal skull. Or maybe you're a collector just like me, but you just don't know where to go to find the real thing. Then I met Carolyn Ford over at EinsteinTheCrystalSkull.com. Carolyn is the guardian of Einstein, one of the most respected ancient crystal skulls in the world. All of her unique skulls have been imprinted sitting with Einstein in his sacred lodge and are carved from the finest gemstone and materials. Imprinting is the process of receiving the ancient wisdom from the master skull or master computer, Einstein, the ancient crystal skull. To see Carolyn's current collection of crystal skulls, just visit her store at EinsteinTheCrystalSkull.com or click on the banner over on our site. Don't forget to use the promo code Jimmy at checkout to receive 10% off of your order today. That's promo code Jimmy. Finding your first or next crystal skull is easy. Just visit EinsteinTheCrystalSkull.com. When you take the beans from Central America with dashes of Indonesian and African mixed in and then roasted to the dark side of fade to black, you create the ultimate brew of fringe. Introducing the Fade to Black blend from River Moon Coffee. Yes, River Moon's darkest customized roast was created for the love of Fade to Black. The alchemy of masterful roasting and smoking the beans is in every sip of this full-bodied, dark Java. I need my coffee dark, deep, with distinct bittersweet chocolate highlights, just like the bunker. Leaning further into the darkness of the roast is Fade to Black blend from River Moon Coffee. Just click on the banner at jimmychurchradio.com and use the promo code F2B Blend for 15% off of your order today.
Hello, I'm Katie, and you're listening to my main man, Jimmy Church, on jimmychurchradio.com.
Hi, this is Ray Hobbs here, repping the planet, and you're listening to my good friend, Jimmy Church, Fade to Black.
This is Toby Kebbell. You're listening to jimmychurchradio.com. Don't hurt me, Jimmy. I'm only little.
Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier. And this is Ari Gold. We're the Honey Brothers. We're of the Honey Brothers. Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier.
And I'm Ari Gold.
We're the Honey Brothers.
And you're listening to Jimmy Church.
The Revolution.
This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and you can become an official Fadernaut by just going to our membership section at jimmychurchradio.com.
Hello, this is Serena Wright Taylor from Conscious Life Expo, and you're listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church, who holds the Lucky Pony record for the best astrological chart since 1963. True story.
This is Micah Hanks of the Gralien Report, and you're listening to Jimmy Church on Fade to Black.
Welcome back. Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, Rick Levine is with us for the first time. Very excited about the show. Been looking forward to this for a long time. Been following Rick. I've been in Los Angeles for a long time. I know the name Rick Levine. Very excited about our conversation tonight, Rick. And a couple of things before we get started. You're going to be at the Conscious Life Expo. I'm going to be able to break bread with you and hang out with you next weekend. I can't believe it. It's coming up really quick. And you're doing a lot of education out there in some of
You say next weekend. It's actually the weekend after next. It's February 4th through 7th.
Today is the 25th, so it's in 9 days.
Yeah.
9 days. Now, you're the astrologer. You better know what you're doing in 9 days. I want to start with the basics tonight in our journey. And I want to talk about the zodiac and get this out of the way, and so we can better understand it. And in a historical context, for me, when I go back to Dendera in Egypt, and that zodiac on the ceiling there in the temple, that's 4,500 years old. I mean, that's crazy town to me. And if we go back from that, and that looks pretty modern to my eyes, but if we go back another 7,000 years before that, to Göbekli Tepe, there is a pillar at Göbekli Tepe that was carved 10,500 BC, 12,000 years ago, with zodiac signs on it. And that is... it's impressive, but it raises more questions than it answers. So what is the zodiac? And then the next question will be, which version do you use? So what's a zodiac?
Well, first of all, I'd like to say that it raises more questions than it answers for me, too.
Okay, fair enough.
And we're not going to answer those questions. I mean, we can ask them and we can talk about them, but like many things, it seems as we go back further in time, modern ideas return in different forms way before we think they should. And whether first of all, the Egyptians, for example, certainly had their cosmology and their astrology, and it's quite different than modern astrology. And when I say modern astrology, I mean what's often called psychological, spiritual astrology. And there's another word I'm going to throw in here, and we can define that in a moment, and that is tropical. And the word tropical actually what we call the tropics are based upon mappings of how the sun seems to come north in the summer and south in the winter, and it reaches the Tropic of Capricorn or the Tropic of Cancer on either extremes of its two solstices from summer to winter. And tropical astrology that we practice in the West is really seasonal astrology. And this surprises a lot of people because it's not constellational. It uses the zodiac, but once every 2 or 3 years, some NASA scientist or some astronomy, educated astronomer says, your sign has changed. Astrology is wrong. Everyone has it wrong. If you thought you were a Libra, you're wrong. You're now a Virgo. Well, this is basically ignorant people thinking they know something that they don't. But the problem is that because of the wobble of the Earth, something called the precession or the moving backward of the equinox, because the Earth wobbles backwards, if you spin a top, as it spins in one direction, as it begins to slow down, it begins to wobble backwards to the direction of its spin until it falls over. Mm-hmm. Well, the Earth wobbles backwards once every 26,000 years, approximately. And that wobble means that on the first day of spring, which we can measure, the Egyptians knew how to calculate it, the Greeks knew how to calculate it, on the spring equinox, that the star that was last visible before the sun rose, which is the way they could tell what time of year it was, because from Earth's point of view, if the sun moves all the way around the zodiac in a year, and I'll come back and define zodiac in just a moment, that means that if we see what star is in the sky just before sunrise, we can kind of tell where we are in the big picture of things. The problem is that there is a slippage from the star that's on the eastern horizon at sunrise 1 degree every 72 years, which makes this 26,000 year cycle.
Right.
And because of that, when you say you're a Libra, people want to say, and I would actually want to say, that means that the sun was in the sign of Libra when you were born, from Earth's point of view. But it's not the constellation of Libra, because the sign that we use in modern astrology in the zodiac is based upon our seasons, because the seasons slip from the actual location of the stars 1/72nd of a degree every year, which doesn't seem like much, but if you're talking 10 or 15,000 years, that's all of a sudden a half a cycle or more of the entire zodiac. So the zodiac is this. The zodiac is a division of a circle by 12. Period. That's what the zodiac is. Now, people say the zodiac are the names of the 12 constellations that form the ecliptic. And the ecliptic is the plane. Think of a Frisbee, and we're in the center of the Frisbee. And from our perspective, the sun and all the planets move around that same plane. They might go a little bit north and a little bit south of it, but for all practical purposes, the entire solar system, the sun, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, all the planets are roughly on the same plane. And that's called the ecliptic, which means when we look at the sky at night and we can see the planets, and remember, planet is just a Greek word, planeta, from the Greek, which means a star that wanders. So to the ancients, there was no difference between the constellations of the fixed stars and the planets, except the planets were wanderers. The planets wander, but they wander along what we sometimes call the celestial highway, the zodiac, the ecliptic. And so the 12 constellations that the ancients named up there to correspond with the 12 months of the year, to correspond with the seasons even, those 12 signs were originally constellational. They were constellations, but the constellations don't exist up there. We make that shit up. It's, there are not 12 constellations in the sky. There are 12 constellations in our minds. And why 12 is very important. I'll cycle back to that in just a moment. But the fact of the matter is that when we see a constellation like Libra or Cancer or Sagittarius, the stars that are in that constellation look like they're close together, but they can be hundreds of light years apart. One star can be 20 light years from us, and another one in the same direction can be much brighter, but can be 70 light years from us. They're not close together. They're just a visual orientation that we have that makes them look like a group. And so the ancients came up with these meanings associated to these symbols to correspond with the times of the year. For example, Aries being the first sign of the zodiac. Mm-hmm. Aries is kind of head forward. It's ram. It's moving into new places. And all the ancient traditions had, March 21st or right around there was the new year. That was the beginning of it all. That was the first burst of spring. And then in Taurus, the bull, the energy that was first moving forward, again, thinking of the horns of the ram butting ahead, mm-hmm. but in the bull, it becomes more solid. And in the northern hemisphere, growth begins to get twigs, begins to get woody, begins to get substance. And Taurus is the sign of substance. And you can follow around each of the signs all the way through the 12 signs and see how this cycle becomes a cycle of meaning that the ancients tagged onto the idea of cycles in general. So coming full swing, a zodiac is simply a cycle divided into 12. Why 12? 12 is the coolest shit number there is out there because you can divide it in half. You can divide it in half again, which a quarter. When you look at a clock, all our timekeeping is done like the zodiac. All timekeeping systems are done base 12, meaning you count from 1 to 12 and then you start again. And 12 is great because you can divide it by 2, 3, and 4. And there's no other number that's so versatile to be able to divide up like that. And therefore, with the zodiac, we can very quickly divide it in half or by quarters or by thirds. And we can come up with all these geometric meanings based upon when we divide a circle by thirds, we end up with a triangle. And those triangles connect the signs of the same element. Elements in astrology come from the Greek concept, fire, earth, air, water. Mm-hmm. This, in fact, was the absolute basis of Jung's psychology. He actually never called it Jung's psychology, like Jesus never called his teachings Christianity, or Buddhism. He called what he did analytical psychology, or the psychology of 4 types. What were the 4 types? Thinking, feeling, intuiting, and perception and sensing. Thinking, feeling, intuiting, and sensing. And those 4 types corresponded to thinking, air, intuiting, fire. Fire doesn't think about what it does next. It just burns. Mm-hmm. Water, emotions, water. And fire, earth, air, water. I skipped one. Oh, and earth, which is sensation. And Jung got the basis of his psychology because he noted that people tended to be some more thinkers, some more feelers, some more intuitive. Some seem to be more leaning on two of them than one. Some people lacking in one of the four. And it's basically the basis of astrology is not the signs. The signs are derived from the four elements, fire, earth, air, water. And you go around the 12 signs of the zodiac and you go fire, earth, air, water, Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer. And then you go fire, earth, air, water again. And from there you go Leo, fire, Virgo, earth, Libra, air, Scorpio, water, and then you go fire, earth, air, water again. And so it's the same pattern. And it's the geometry of how all this stuff fits together that's absolutely magical. But when you go back, the divisions aren't always by 12. In fact, the Egyptians loved the division by 36. The Hindus do a division by 27 called moon mansions, or, Nagsham. I just lost the word. Nakshatras. I couldn't think of the Hindu word for a minute. And so there's different ways to divide up a cycle. The important thing to understand is that astrology is the study of cycles and the observation of the planets that wander around in their own cycles. From Earth's point of view, the sun looks like it takes 1 year to make one cycle. It's really the Earth moving, but it looks like the sun takes a year. It takes the moon how long to make a cycle? A month, because that's what a month is. It's one moon cycle, give or take a little bit to make it all fit. A Mercury cycle is 88 days, roughly. It's 1/4 of a year, a season. And the planets all correspond in their own movements as you go out farther and farther, out past Saturn that takes nearly 30 years, and Pluto, which makes 4 cycles a millennium. It takes about 250 years for Pluto to make one cycle around the sun. And all of the complexity of all this movement is what astrologers combine into trying to understand the meaning of time in any given moment.
How is it possible, staying on all of this, how is it possible that the ancients, before telescopes, certainly before computers, before telescopes, and more modern technology and science, which only really happened in the last 300 years, how is it possible that these cultures knew about precession, 1 degree every 72 years? I don't know how those measurements were accumulated 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 years ago. And also...
or longer.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And cross-culturally around the world, without communication, also had similar names for the constellations and the seasons. How is it possible that this knowledge was out there and shared so long ago?
Alien intervention?
Well, Jung did write a book called Jung on UFOs. You know that, right?
And I say that only partly tongue-in-cheek, because when it comes to so many of these questions, I am agnostic, which really means without knowing. Agnoia, without knowing.
Right.
And it's as plausible as it's as plausible a solution as anything else. But the truth of the matter is we don't know. We do know that what we practice in the West as modern Western tropical psychological spiritual astrology really kind of popped into its current form in the Greek in the Hellenistic, pre-Hellenistic world, few centuries prior to the birth of Jesus. That's when the first charts of an individual were ever done. Before that, astrology was really more about only for the pharaohs, and it was about the soul's migration, after death and through the Milky Way. It was more galactic than it was solar systemic. But the Greek period of time is where a lot of this stuff comes together. And it's interesting because it comes together rather rapidly.
Now, I've got a lot of fans of yours that are throwing some questions at me, and this one's really interesting. Please ask Rick why he doesn't use the sidereal zodiac.
It's sidereal, meaning of the stars.
Oh.
Sidereal, sidereus or sidereal means star in Latin. and the Vedic astrologers, meaning the astrology that is practiced in India,
right,
is largely sidereal. The problem is that neither of I wanted to say both of them work, but neither of them work. Einstein said very clearly and demonstrated very clearly that everything in the universe moves. Everything moves. So when you're doing anything, you need a point of reference, whether that point of reference is riding a photon at the speed of light or whether it's being here on Earth, you need a point of reference. So the difference between sidereal or star-based or constellational-based astrology and tropical seasonal-based astrology is that one is more based upon time and the other is more based upon space. Now, time and space are absolutely integrated, another Einsteinian concept, that the faster you go, the slower time gets. Time and space are interrelated. The problem is that you can't get one to fit the other. They're two different frames of references. Why I use tropical, meaning seasonal astrology rather than sidereal, is that it seems more relevant to us here on Earth, where the seasons actually do change, where there is a difference between January or February and August or September. Part of the problem was exacerbated by the fact that the church celebrated certain holidays that were tied to seasons, and it began getting very weird in the 12, 13, 1400s when Easter, which is about the rebirth of spring, the resurrection, but seasonally about the rebirth of spring, and in fact, even the Catholic holidays like Easter are astrologically calculated. Easter occurs on the first full moon after the spring equinox. So on the first full moon, the first Sunday after the first full moon, after the spring equinox, the first day of spring. The problem was in the 1400s, because of that precession of the equinox, they were celebrating spring, and it felt like the middle of winter because it had moved back a month. And so it was Pope Gregory who said, all right, we're going to fix this. We're going to add 26 days to the calendar. And boom, that's what he did. They padded the calendar with 26 days so that the slippage was made right.
So you're suggesting that Easter is a pagan holiday?
No, I'm suggesting that pretty much all the Catholic holidays were pagan holidays until they were rewritten and co-opted. But that's not to say anything in detriment of Catholicism. That's the way it's done.
Yes.
From Halloween to Christmas to Easter, all these holidays were in fact holidays that were celebrated because of their astrological significance, whether it was a celebration of spring at Beltane or midsummer, or the returning of the light, around Lammas or Yuletide. And these were all originally holidays that were nature, and until priests got a hold of these archetypes and used them for institutional power. And thus, William Blake said, men forgot that all gods reside in one's breast.
One last question before the break. Please ask Rick why there is a Western-style zodiac and an Eastern. The Eastern zodiac is a 4x4 grid, and behind the Western by one sign.
So the behind the Western by one sign is that difference between tropical and sidereal that I already addressed.
Okay.
One is based upon mapping the planets against the fixed stars up there, and the other is mapping the planets against the first moment of spring, against the summer solstice, the first moment of autumn, and the winter solstice. That becomes the north, south, east, west, the cardinal points, if you will, of time on this planet. But the other question is more about what the horoscope wheel looks like. And even in the West, we used square horoscopes until maybe the 16th, 17th century. The round horoscope is a modern addition to astrology. It makes more sense, but it's really just a mapping technique.
Now, with and please go with my naive aspect to this. With Vedic astrology, and a Vedic astrologer reads me my chart or talks about the future, is there similarities to the tropical version of it, and is the information largely the same and accurate?
It's a really good question. It's a confusing question. I've had my chart done by two very, very well-known Vedic astrologers. And the word Vedic just comes from the Vedas, which are the Hindu oral religious tradition of creation, like the Bible, in the West. That's what Vedic astrology is. But I am an Aries in Vedic astrology. I become a Pisces because they do move back, not a whole sign, but almost a whole sign. Everything in my chart is different, and yet the two readings that I had with Vedic astrologers were amazingly accurate. Somehow the systems, as long as they're self-referential, which then goes back to that Einstein thing, is in all moving systems, you need to pick a point of reference. There are some things that stay exactly the same, regardless of whether we're doing Western or Eastern, Western, modern, psychospiritual, tropical astrology, or Vedic sidereal astrology. Some things remain the same. There's a new moon. It's a new moon in either system. It's just could be in different signs. The relationships between the planets stay exactly the same. And it's my personal belief from years of experience that it is these relationships between the planets. The astrological word we use to describe that is aspects. These aspects are really the meat and potatoes of how astrology and why astrology works.
Absolutely fascinating. Let's take our break right here. This is Fade to Black. Our guest tonight, Rick Levine. It is Astrology 101 for me all night long. I learn, you learn. More with Rick after this short break. Stay with us. This is Fade to Black.
Way out here, we listen to Jimmy Church.
You're listening to Fade to Black.
You're listening to Jimmy Church and Fade to Black on the X.
¿Qué tal, mis amigos? Yo soy Mario Carson, el tiburón, y los invito para que escuchen a mi buen amigo Jimmy Church Radio. ¡Claro que sí!
This is Jimmy Church, and I personally invite you to the 2022 Conscious Life Expo this February 4th through the 7th, live at the LAX Hilton in Los Angeles, California. This year, we have the most exciting speakers, including Whitley Strieber, Adam Apollo, Billy Carson, Daryl Anka and Bashar, William Henry, Caroline Corey, Susan Slaughter, Daniel Brinkley, JJ and Desiree Hertog, Sarah Breskman Cosme, George Norrie, Gail Thackeray, and many, many more. I will be hosting all weekend long, including the keynote Ancient Secrets panel on Friday night, 5 vendor and exhibit halls, 3 floors of speakers, panels, and celebration. This is the biggest event of the year, and early bird passes are available now. Just go to ConsciousLifeExpo.com for the schedule, speakers, and information. That's ConsciousLifeExpo.com. Do you want to be an official Fadernaut? Of course you do. This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black. Just go to our membership section at JimmyChurchRadio.com. Fadernauts. When you think about the future of our country and where we're headed, do you wonder about the food supply? I do. Disruptions in the food supply chain could be disastrous, and they usually occur with little warning. That's why the smartest thing you can do today is to stockpile emergency food, water, and other essentials. I personally recommend My Patriot Supply. They're the nation's largest emergency preparedness company, serving millions of customers for more than than a decade. In fact, they're the only source my family trusts for our preparedness plan. You should too. Right now, save 20% off a full 4-week supply of delicious meals that provide 2,000 calories a day. Saving 20% helps too, doesn't it? Especially now. So go to preparewithjimmy.com and get ready. That's preparewithjimmy.com. There's no time to lose. Do it now.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7, with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
You listen to us, and we listen to you. And so does the CIA. KGRAradio.com.
You are listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
Oi, oi, I'm Reese Evans. You're listening to Jimmy Church. This is Revolution. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution is on radio. Ciao.
Welcome back. Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. You know what's really strange about tonight, Rick, is that right now I am live in another interview on Monsters of Rock Radio that was taped last week, and it's broadcasting live right now. I'm getting text. Hey, man, how are you doing 2 shows at the same time? It's kind of weird. And so that's the universe winking at us. No, I am not doing 2 interviews at the same time. I am live here with Rick Levine. Now, okay, Rick, I almost want to, but I'm not going to. But I almost want to stay on the Einstein aspect of this and the expansion of the universe. Things are moving out there. How does that change astrology? Does it change things? Because I can spend a whole night just discussing that topic. And,
so could I.
Yeah, it's a fascinating aspect to this. But and maybe if we have time, we can come back to it. But what I do want to discuss is the flux, the changes that this planet has endured as an Earth over certainly the last 2 years, the last 3 years, the last 4 years. Lots of changes that have gone on. Was this expressed to you through astrology and these tremendous changes, this paradigm shift that this planet is going through? Did you see all of this coming?
Yes, and so have most astrologers. It's been something that we've been talking about and discussing and doing presentations on at astrology conferences for a number of years. But that doesn't mean that anyone knew exactly how the specific events would unfold. You know, things happen on 2 levels. One is the archetypal level of the symbolic energy, and the other is the specificity that the specific events are. And it seems that the specific events, more often than not, correspond with the general energetic ideas were, but it doesn't mean that one knows specifically what's going to happen. I mean, every astrologer on the planet, well, let me put it this way. The first time I wrote about January of 2020 was in October of 2001. And I did that because in September of 2001, there was an alignment that's roughly in every 38-year alignment, roughly. It varies, and half of that, that the alignment is the alignment like a new moon, and then the full moon is like halfway through the cycle. Well, in September of 2001, there was an alignment of the planet Saturn and Pluto, and astrologers were writing about what's going to happen in the fall. We don't know, but something is, this is a cycle that's too mechanical. You can look back all the way to the death of Jesus and see, or I should say the nailing of Jesus to the cross, so I don't offend anyone.
Right.
But the fact is that that in April of 2001, one of the astrology journals carried an article by an astrologer that showed a tall glassine office building on fire in the middle with a phoenix coming out of it, because phoenix is the symbol of the planet Pluto. And this alignment of Saturn and Pluto, which occurred around the bombing of the World Trade Tower, was something that took up astrology journals for months and months and months afterwards, looking at it backwards in time. And it was in October, the month after that, that I projected forward to the next time Saturn and Pluto would be aligned. This time, like a new moon, they would be aligned at the same place in the sky. And that exact alignment was on January 12th of 2020, which turned out to be the day of the first reported mortality of COVID and the announcement of the genome. Now, did I predict the plague or the whatever we want to call it, the pandemic? No. But I, like so many other astrologers, know the lineage of this particular slow-moving cycle. That's not about how astrology impacts a Libra versus a Capricorn, but it's more about the unfolding of history through time. And this is a whole newer study of astrology, because until you had the computer, there was no way to know where a planet was on March 11th, 1522. Now I can sit at my desk and I can say, give me a listing of every time Saturn and Pluto were either aligned, were opposite, or 90 degrees from one to the other since the year 300 AD. I can hit the button, and by the time I look up, I have the list in front of me. And so that's changed the name of the game of this form of what's called mundane or world astrology. Mundane, Latin mundus, from the world. And so from that standpoint, yeah, every astrologer I know knew that 2020, 2021, 2022 was a big period of time. But by the same token, we also knew that about 2012 to 2015, which was the Arab Spring and the legalization of marijuana in so many places, and the legalization of gay marriage. And we knew in advance that whatever was going to unfold in that, let's say, 2010 to 2020 period of time, that we knew that what was going to happen in that decade was directly connected to what happened in the 60s, because it was part of the exact same cycle.
Interesting.
And you think of the major issues that unfolded, around that 2012 to 2015 period of time specifically, and they're the same issues that were on our plate, not only in the 60s, but you can track these cycles back. And in fact, there's a brand new documentary that's going to be released on February 22nd, I think, and there will be a screening of one of 10 episodes of this at the Conscious Life Expo at the LAX Hilton on Saturday, February 5th. And after the screening of, and this documentary is a 10 1-hour segments about the history of how this particular cycle is impacting where we are culturally, economically, politically, individually, with respect to history these days. And after the free screening of the first episode, there'll be a panel discussion that I'll be leading on discussing some of these topics. So it's fascinating work. And yeah, the last few years have been extraordinary looking back at them, but they were extraordinary looking ahead toward them too, not knowing how they were going to play out.
How do you explain and try to get this into words when somebody comes at you with these important questions about the future and what this last few years meant? Because everybody on this planet was impacted by it, and they're emotionally stressed out, and they're coming to you. And how do you deal with that, and how do you try to put it into words?
Well, I think how I or any astrologer deals with that changes over time and as we deal with it individually. I mean, I was impacted and have been and continue to be just like everyone else. But I don't feel like it's my job to explain everything to everyone, although I can sometimes pull out enough simple pieces to put this in perspective so people understand. One of the talks that I'll be doing on the after conferences on Monday is a WTF, where are we? What is going on these days?
Right.
And in that I will have graphics to show and unfold why these times are so extraordinary and what we might have expected versus what we got versus how we may look at this period of time from 50 years to 100 years down the road. Because you see, if things are moving around in circles, then there is a repetition. No, there's never a time when every planet is in exactly the same place as it was, because there's too many planets moving in too many variations of speeds and so on. However, we can pick out pairs of planets like the sun and the moon. And we know that ancients, as far back as we can tell, were aware of the sun-moon cycle. Well, it's visible. It's the new moon, full moon, and the first quarter moon. And what people don't understand, though, is that astrology takes a cycle and divides it in half and divides it in half again, because that's where the action is in physics, at the 90-degree angles, at the points of maximum interference of wave patterns. And so you take the cycle of the moon going around the earth, and it takes one moon for the moon to catch up to the sun. That's what a month is, a moon cycle.
Right.
And half of that is a fortnight, which we moderners don't use much, but that used to be as important a measurement as a month, because it was 2 weeks. It was half of a moon cycle. And half of a fortnight is a week, which we still use. So a week is simply a half of a sun-moon cycle. Now, we know behaviorally that there are differences in behavior. We can measure them statistically and have that when a full moon falls on a Friday or Saturday night, that the emergency rooms and arrest records, the arrest numbers go up. Emergency rooms are crowded with accidents, and crazy shit seems to happen around a full moon.
Right.
Whereas a new moon, it seems like it's the opposite end of the spectrum. I know emergency room doctors who just hate getting emergency room assignments when a full moon happens to hit on a weekend, because it's like a wave on top of a wave. If a full moon hits on a cold January night, maybe there are not a lot of people going out. But if it hits on a Friday night, just after graduation weekend, it's like a wave on a wave. So that kind of a wave form is a 30-day wave. That happens regularly, and we know that there are differences in behavior. But then if you take a wave form like Uranus and Pluto that line up every couple of centuries, we don't see them unfold in our life. But if you realize that the American and French Revolutionary Wars occurred around a Uranus and Pluto alignment, and that the 1960s was a Uranus-Pluto alignment, as was this 2012 to 2015, really extended for the whole decade, then you begin to see that there are patterns that kind of continually resurface again and again and again that you wouldn't notice unless you notice. You said a key word at the very beginning, and I was wanted to interrupt you and say something then, but I didn't. And the word that you used was awareness. And what I wanted to say was the Buddhists, amongst other people, will tell us that there's nothing that can be changed except awareness. And that when we change our awareness, we change everything. Now, this isn't my idea, although I believe in it, but it's Anais Nin who said, we don't see things as they are, we see things as we are. The great mystical poet William Blake said that our sense organs actually open and close based upon different places in history. Marshall McLuhan, the great media guru of the 60s, 70s, said the same thing. James Joyce wrote an entire book, Finnegan's Wake, about this movement of our sensory organs. And so what happens is that as our awareness changes, that gives us more choices. You know, if you have a certain set of beliefs, if you believe that the earth is flat and you can't go near the edge, you'll never go past that point that you think is the edge. But if you then change your awareness and realize that the earth may be a globe, all of a sudden you can go places you didn't go before. And so the key thing with astrology is that it's a way in making those things that were invisible, those patterns that we didn't realize were patterns. And as we begin to see them, we go, holy crap. And that's happening again right now, where for a few days we have right now currently Mercury is retrograde and Venus is at the tail end of a retrograde. The word retrograde is another one of those great astrology words that most people don't have a clue as to what it means. So it sounds like mumbo jumbo. What it means is that it looks like the planet's going backwards, even though it's not. Now, you've probably been somewhere in a city where you're on a rapid transit or a subway, and you look out the window of the car that you're in, and you're going past another train, and it looks like the train's going the other way, and then you realize that it's going the same way you are, but not quite as fast. You know, that optical illusion.
Right.
It happens if you're at a red light and the driver takes his foot off the gas and you just begin rolling forward, but it looks like the car next to you is going backwards. Planets go retrograde when they get close to the Earth and when we lose perspective. And when they do, the archetypal energy of that planet heats up, it intensifies. And so there is something to the phenomenon of Mercury turning retrograde for about 3 weeks, about 3 times a year. And it's just stuff begins to cook up faster than it normally does. And yet we don't seem to be able to go forward as fast as we were going because it looks like the planet's going backwards. I don't want to go too far down that rabbit hole. I'm just making the point that if we begin to look at Mercury retrogrades and be aware of when they're retrograde, we begin to see the patterns in our lives and the lives of people around us like, oh my God, how did I never notice that? Well, you never noticed that because you weren't looking for that pattern.
Now, it doesn't matter what walk of life or what country you're in. None of that matters.
Correct.
But we have seen in the last few years, whether it's riots or it's elections, it's religion, it's weather, it's hurricanes, it's of course, you know, we can mention the pandemic, and the headlines were as dramatic as they could have possibly been. No matter who you are in what walk of life, you were affected, and it all happened at the same time.
Oh, absolutely. And this kind of synchronicity is it's like one of the byproducts of looking at these long-term cycles. Here's like just a quick, I could do this for hours, but just like one quick thought. So a conjunction of Saturn, the planets of limits and boundaries authority,
right,
and Pluto, the planet of the underworld that destroys boundaries, that deconstructs, that the alignment of Saturn and Pluto on January 12th, 2020, happened in the sign of Capricorn, which is Saturn's home sign. Every planet has a home sign. The last time that Saturn and Pluto aligned in Capricorn, in Saturn's own sign, was in 1530. Now I've forgotten the date, 1531, I think it was, which was 2 months after Martin Luther nailed the theses on the church in Württemberg, Germany, that began what we moderners call the Protestant Reformation. What they called, catch this, it wasn't the Protestant Reformation, it was the Protestant Reformation. That's what we're going through right now. It's the first time that has happened since then. The changes, and yet if you were alive and you went to church where Martin Luther was the priest, you would have had no idea of the impact that little resistance he was doing to the idea of paying priests to be absolved of sin.
Right.
You'd have no idea how that would take down the throne of Rome and basically make the world a different place. It took 100 years or so. We're at that same point when you're in the middle of the event, even if it seems like it's a big event, and this one does for a lot of reasons, there's still no way of seeing the perspective that one gains over time. And yet astrologically, that's just one piece of a trifecta or more of things that have gone down from January of 2020 all the way up through now. Actually, let's include election day of 2022.
Certainly. Now, in the time that we have left, and we'll continue the conversation after the break, the $1 million question, are we at the end of this cycle? Are there rainbows ahead? What's 2022 looking like? Because we're all getting pretty exhausted.
Yeah, we are. And I think that 2022 has some hope. I think that it's the first. I think that even the months coming up, March, April, May, I think we see some breakthroughs and hope. However, the stuff that we have gone through is way too large conceptually. Again, think Martin Luther in the 1530s. I wish I had my notes.
I think it's 1534, but don't depend on me for intelligence.
Okay, I'll depend upon you for media connection and not intelligence. But the point is that that to think that if you were living then, by the time maybe a year later, when he had already defied the church and he was excommunicated, you might have thought, okay, well, that's done, not realizing the significance of what that really meant. And so from that standpoint, no, we're not done. It's going to take years for this to unfold. It's going to definitely be be a while. It's not going to happen overnight. Although we are, I would say by 2023, we'll feel like some of this is behind us. I still think we got a bit of rock and roll ahead of us. And although I don't think we'll have to go through what we went through already to say that we're out of the mud, out of the whatever that saying is, we're not out of this at all. It is absolutely more to unfold, more to follow. And by the way, it was 1517 on Halloween night that Martin Luther posted the theses, and it was in January of 1518 that there was the exact Saturn-Pluto conjunction.
And then, and this popped up, 1535 was the other year, God's words boast on the church's authority. That happened in 1535. So it started in 1517?
1517 was on Halloween night, was the night that Martin Luther reached the point of saying that the church is rotten, that religion is important, but that the church itself has deviated from its place, and where you can pay money to be absolved of sins, that's not right. And he posted these 95 truths. But my point here is simply that if you were alive then, you knew there was big stuff going down, but you'd have no idea how big. And part of the reason is because at that point in time, And even several hundred years later, I mean, William Blake and Beethoven lived at the same time, and they didn't know each other. They lived a few hundred miles apart. I mean, in today's day and age, they would have been writing songs together or something.
Right.
And so we live in such a different world astrologically, because when we get these major events, they're fed back to us through social media, through media in so many ways that it becomes like going to a Grateful Dead concert where there's this reverberation from the overamping and the feedback loops. And I actually have coined a word called cosmic feedback loops that I think can be tracked astrologically, because we're in this place of using our technology to feed back the events again and again and again every time a point or planet is stimulated while we're going through these big things. All of a sudden, all the videotapes come out from last year, last month, a year ago, whatever, and that didn't used to be possible. Again, at the time of Martin Luther, you went through it. You were in a little isolated village in Germany, and you had no idea this connected to anything else, no less than a world revolution.
How long does the Pluto-Saturn resting in Capricorn event actually last?
Well, that event technically is over.
Okay.
Technically, because Saturn has moved on into Aquarius. Saturn through 2021 did a square with Uranus, which was kind of this extreme old, new, conservative, progressive. We're still in that, and we will be in that all this year. But it's a slightly different energy, but one fed into the other. But the Saturn-Pluto piece of it's over, but here's the problem. The coldest day of the year is not the day of shortest light. In other words, December 21st, theoretically, should be the coldest day of the year because there's no sunlight that day in many places.
Right.
But because of what we call the lag of seasons, it takes time for the ocean to cool down enough that the coldest days are really in January or February. Same thing. And so these big astrological changes that are affecting culture, the main event could be in January of 2020, but we can still be seeing ramifications of it still growing in 2021, 22, 23. The 60s is a good example of this. The exact conjunction between Uranus and Pluto occurred 3 times between summer of 65 and summer of 66. Those were the exact conjunctions. And yet the fullest effect of those conjunctions was arguably 67, 68, 69, 70. By 71, 72, it's beginning to fade. And it's really not until the resignation of Nixon in 72 or 73 that it really feels like the 60s are over. So in fact, even though this event has occurred, we're still in the realm of getting the ripples from it that it's not quite done.
Yeah, it makes sense. And especially considering 5 years later, we had Van Halen's first album in 1978, 79, and that changed everything. Rick, I'm just kidding. Let's take our break right here. This is Fade to Black. Our guest tonight, Rick Levine, an amazing conversation. We're just going to continue everything when we come back after this short break. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. This is Fade to Black. Stay with us.
Hi everybody, this is Rob Halford, the Metal Guard on JimmyChurchRadio.com.
Your 1 million gigawatt paranormal powerhouse, KUNX-DB, The X.
Are you ready to read about true paranormal events? UNX Media publishes nonfiction books about UFOs, ghosts and haunted places, time anomalies, cryptid creatures, and more. Just like KUNX-DB Radio, it's all about unexplained phenomena. Visit www.unxmedia.com to see our list of great book titles by Debbie Ziegelmeyer, Gene Walker, Devin Listrom, Wayne Lawrence, Bill Spicer, and yours truly, Margie Kay. That's unxmedia.com.
Why is it we're not very good with our health regimen until it's too late? We don't put oil in the car until the engine blows up. When the body's out of balance, your health is not so good. Give your body some love. Log on to getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. Try our Life Change Tea, which cleanses you from harmful intruders. A clean colon is one of the ways to bring the body in balance. We also carry organic supplements to help you get where you need to go. So do your body a favor. Log on to getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. You can even visit our sales page to save some dough. Does anybody call money dough anymore? Anyway, if you're looking for short, helpful health tips, go to YouTube and punch in Health Matters Now. That's Health Matters Now. So, log on to getthetea.com, shop, get balanced, then learn some cool tips at Health Matters Now. You'll be glad you did. That's getthetea.com.
This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and I only drink Fade to Black blend coffee from Rivermoon. Just click on the Rivermoon Coffee banner at jimmychurchradio.com. Promo code F2B Blend.
This is the only way forward.
This is Fade to Black. Make contact.
When you're in the house for longer periods of time, you can see them flying or running across the floor. Ooh, yuck. They're unhealthy, gross, and disgusting. Bugs. I loathe bugs. We keep a clean home, but occasionally bugs show up. Well, I found something that is tougher than bugs. Orange Guard. On contact, it kills hidden bugs, including ants, roaches, and fleas. Plus, Orange Guard is a residual repellent. All of the ingredients of Orange Guard are on the FDA generally recognized as safe list. Orange Guard may be used around food, humans, and pets. It comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Orange Guard. Available at orangeguard.com, Whole Foods, and Ace Hardware.
Gold loves chaos, uncertainty, and disarray. History shows us what gold does when people aren't sure about the government, the stock market, their jobs, or their retirement savings. Our national debt is skyrocketing. Gold and other precious metals are a defense measure against inflation and a stock market that might take years to recover. So what can you do right now to protect yourself? Call United Gold Group. We offer gold and other precious metals delivered securely within 72 hours. Are you worried about the stock market? We can also help you set up a real gold or silver IRA or a 401k. Safe and secure. United Gold Group makes gold ownership affordable. Call now and get up to $2,500 in free gold or silver with a qualified IRA. Call 800-753-8534. That's 800-753-8534 or visit unitedgoldgroup.com.
You want to know a secret? I love ponies. I really love ponies. I'm serious. I couldn't stay sane without ponies to brush.
Why Fade to Black? Because you never got that pony, damn it.
This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network.
All right, welcome back. Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Our guest tonight, Rick Levine. Want to remind everybody, tomorrow night, Giorgio Tsoukalos is stopping by. We're going to be talking about Ancient Aliens, Season 18. I can't believe that's a big number right there. Season 18 of Ancient Aliens. And then, of course, Thursday night is another Fader night with open lines all night long. And now, Rick, let's open this up a little bit. How do you see a shift in consciousness and emotion? I don't want to say from light to dark or dark to light, but the planet itself, as Earthlings, is experiencing something. Are we going to see a shift in consciousness, and is somebody that's maybe not aware of it, are they feeling it now?
Good question, tough question, and there's lots of ways we can look at that. First of all, I would say that not everybody is feeling the same thing that many people, or maybe even most people, are feeling. There are people in parts of the planet that had the apocalypse 5 years ago or 20 years ago, depending upon what ethnic cleansing was involved or what environmental disaster. We tend to think of as time being now, but there's this floating kind of relativity. And so that what one person or one culture might experience as the end times, the end of the world, their entire world falling apart, the government, their country, their religion, someone else might not experience for another 20 or 30 years or ever. Now, having said that, I do not think that there is a playbook that says light will overcome dark or light will overcome darkness. However, I think that it is apparent not only to astrologers, but to most people who are paying attention, that we've reached a bifurcation, a place where evolution has reached a point and there are two different paths in front of us. Oh, there may be many more paths than two, but there is, on many issues, there's either this or that. You can't be this and that. It's this or that. And whether we're talking in relationship to pandemic or politics or religion or certain beliefs over certain practices, I don't want to get into them. That's not what I'm here to say. What I'm here to say is that there are such extreme differences that you can't put two people in the same room and say, talk it out. There's this illusion in psychology that if something isn't working, you talk about it, and then you get it to work. But from a practical standpoint, everyone knows there are certain things in their life or in certain relationships, whether it's with a parent or a child or a friend or a spouse or whatever, or an employer, there are certain things that you don't talk about, because if you do, they never go anywhere good and they're not going to get any better. And the more you talk about it, the greater the tension is. Well, it seems like we as a culture have flipped out, and when I'm using a McLuhan term here, meaning we've taken our internal nervous system and we've actually flipped it out so that it's the World Wide Web, the internet. We now have exonervous systems. Our nervous system is out there. We are like cells that are running around inside of this great brain. We've flipped out, and we're not neurotic. Because if we were neurotic, we could do therapy and fix our ills. We're psychotic. You can't talk your way out of a psychosis. And so the odd position we're in is definitely odd. We've never been here culturally before, because so much of it involves the technology of that instantaneous cosmic feedback loop I was talking about. Right. We've never had the technology of being able to be self-aware minute by minute. Any place in the world you want to focus on a particular city and a particular island in the South Seas, you can focus on that wherever you are on the planet. In other words, there's this ongoing instantaneous feedback. And so I think what's happened is that we've reached a point of extreme. We can't go on this way. What will the solution be? I don't know, but whether, and I'm going to say alien intervention for the second time tonight, only because it may take something as extreme. Obviously, whatever your individual relationship with the pandemic that we've experienced over the past, couple of years, the fact of the matter is that it got everyone's attention in some way. Most everyone's attention in some way. But it didn't get our attention in a way that we know we need to fix things. We're still going on with the way things were. And I think that the idea that an emergency is things that emerge when there is a crisis. And I don't know what that crisis is that we're going to require in order to either hurt badly enough or be afraid enough for us to get it right and to overcome our personal differences and realize that we all live on this little speck of dust island, whatever, and that if you win and I lose, we all lose. If I win and you lose, we all lose. We have to figure out some way of unifying, of allowing each to have very different perspectives of what the world looks like, and yet have some commonality in the future where we at least can get together on it. Now, this is not new age pie in the sky dreaming. I think we got a ton of work to do, but we've never been here before.
No, and the choices are going to be right in front of us and dramatic. And I think that we all know that we're going to come out of this different. It's not going to be the same world. It's not. And I think we all knew that.
It already isn't the same world.
Right. And then to throw into the mix, I'm so glad you brought up alien intervention, because we haven't had a global conversation about contact and UFOs and disclosure like we are today, ever. We've never had this conversation like this in this context. Is there something inevitable that is about to happen that would do just what you're saying?
I can't answer that personally, but I certainly know enough people that believe that there is, people that I know and trust, that there certainly is something there. Beyond that, another thing I'm agnostic about. I'm not agnostic because I don't believe. I'm agnostic because I don't know.
Right. Why do you now? Let's go back to the charts for a second. When we're thinking about, some of these big events that have happened, and there's been a lot of them. And to go down the list of the headlines of the last 3 or 4 years, it would take me forever to go through that list. But part of that, one of the most dramatic things is the Navy and the Department of the Defense and the Senate and pilots and disclosure and the media. And suddenly UFOs are part of this conversation. And the timing of it, I find suspect in that it's beyond coincidence to go on when all of this other drama is happening at the same time.
Yeah. Well, as I'm sure you and many of your listeners know, we can go all the way, back to the Brookings Institution, original papers about the necessity of the U.S. government to keep any alien artifacts or contacts from the public, because it would be the dissolution of society as we know it. That was from the late 50s, and certainly the suppression of, stuff. I just because I say I don't know if this will happen doesn't mean that I'm not aware of this whole train of, of process. I actually got, like I said, interested in UFOs. I think I was probably, in junior high school, and that was around the time of Project Blue Book, and knew already that the government was, closing down investigation on something that there were too many people who were intelligent who knew there was something there. So, but I don't know, but it's going to take something like that. I mean, look, global warming or global weirding or climate change or whatever you want to call it, there's something in front of us. It doesn't matter what your politics are, and it doesn't matter what the reason is that you think this is why this is happening. Something's happening, and yet is this enough to get us all together? No, half of us, half the planet still seems to just be very happy in its state of denial, and denial is something that is a very real psychological reaction to things that involve change, or especially if things are okay or we're managing okay. We don't want to confront things that are too overwhelming, but we may have to, or we may be doing that already or on the edge of it.
Now, let's break down how close do you look at things? In 24 hours, do you look at things a week, month, or do you do all of that?
Kind of all of that. I mean, when I was writing these annual books for Barnes & Noble, I was looking at a day by day for a year and a half ahead. At the same time, I was doing an internet YouTube, which I still do, by the way. I have a monthly free YouTube channel that you can find by going to youtube.com/Rick Levine, just youtube.com/Rick Levine. And I do a monthly discussion of the astrological influences of the month coming up. And then I also write a daily column about what's going on tomorrow. And often I don't know when the hell I am because I'm off in the future. I wrote an article about the astrology of the next, decade. And so, yes, all of those things. However, I would come back to something I said at the very beginning, and that is, although astrology is a really good map, it's not the only way to look at things. I do know astrologers who won't get up to go take a pee unless the right planet is in the right sign. And I think that's crazy shit. I'm kind of caricaturizing it, but I know many professionals who before they do anything, or clients who want to call their astrologer and say, is this a good day for me to ask so-and-so out, or for me to send in my taxes or whatever.
Right.
And as much as I use and believe in astrology, I think that when you pay too much attention to things on an analytical level, you're not living. You're analyzing, and so there is a point at which astrology and any map becomes too much because it's easy to confuse the map with reality. Astrology is not reality. It's a way of contextualizing, of framing it for understanding. But yeah, that's my short answer.
Yeah, well, okay. So the reason why I'm asking, in 9 days, one of the big events of the year of every year is the Conscious Life Expo, and it's 9 days away, February 4th through the 7th. When you got those dates, did you? And how is that weekend going to be for us? I'm very concerned. For myself personally, right? We're getting thousands of people together. We're all going to converge at one point in Los Angeles for 3 days, and we're getting together. We're all leaving the house, right? Did you look at those dates?
Yeah, I did, and I've done it on a couple of levels. Again, first of all, I've already done my analysis for February, for my February month ahead, which won't go up for won't go online for another few days. But yes, I certainly have looked at that. I certainly know that weekend, Mercury, which has been retrograde, turns direct on the 4th, 5th, and that's hugely powerful for communication. I know that there's a lot of things very, very powerfully working for us at that time, but I also know that on the 4th, the sun is making its once every year conjunction with Saturn, which is a bit more serious, and there's a bit of constraint and restraint around all of this. So I understand that this is, astrologically, often things are 50% you're tall and 50% you're short. What does that mean? It means that you're tall short. It means that this is going to be, I think, an extremely powerful weekend, and yet there may be either some glitches or some restraints in it that are holding back, that make this different than other Conscious Life Expos. We'll have to wait and see. I love the fact that Venus, which has been retrograde, turns direct this week, actually on the 29th, and that Mercury, which has been retrograde, turns direct on the 4th. And when planets which have been retrograde, it's like they've been storing up energy, and as they move forward, that energy moves. So I think that regardless of what happens, there'll be a lot of movement, around the energy of this weekend. Now, one can read that from either a positive or negative point of view, depending upon what one is projecting into it. And there's where it gets tricky. We don't know.
Now, for you, is it a positive thing?
Well, for me, it's a positive enough thing that I'm going to be there.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
No, I'm serious.
Yeah, I'm being serious, too.
Yeah.
Now, why is for Mercury to go from retrograde to direct, why is it so important, and why do so many in our community, it seems like Mercury's in retrograde all year? I mean, to me, because of the comments that I get.
Let me clarify that. Saturn is retrograde for 5 months a year, as is Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto.
Right.
No one talks about that.
Right.
Mercury is retrograde 3 times a year.
Right.
For about 3 weeks each time. So it's not retrograde all that much, but it's the one that moves the quickest in and out of retrograde, direct and retrograde direct. And it's those changing of directions. It's like if you were driving in a car 30 miles an hour, slammed on the brakes and threw it into reverse, everyone would know it. That's Mercury moving fast. But if you were in an 18-wheeler in a parking lot, moving forward, let's say a quarter of a mile every hour, just barely moving forward, and the driver slammed on the brakes and put it into reverse, you might not even notice. So Mercury, because it's the fastest moving planet, changes directions the fastest, and therefore it has to do with that whole communication disruption or awareness around sending and receiving information. But Mercury moving direct usually loosens up things and allows them to move forward, whereas Mercury turning retrograde kind of puts things on hold. And you can think of it almost like a pendulum that goes back and forth. In order for a pendulum to turn directions, as it begins to reach the end, it actually slows down until it stops. Then it moves very slowly. It picks up speed, and in the middle of its cycle is when it's moving the fastest.
Right.
Well, the planets do that too. And the rough rule of thumb in planets, this is actually more a rule of physics and inertia, and that is that the slower something moves, the more inertia, the more power it has. So that, a mosquito, which moves very fast, it might not have nearly the same power, as something much larger moving slower coming at you. And so the idea is that when a planet slows down, like Mercury and Venus, to turn retrograde or direct, and it has to stop, it's almost like everything that planet represents kind of comes into high focus. And so what we astrologers call these points stations. It's the planet stations that hold still. The word station means to make a singular point and hold it. Mm-hmm. And so when a planet stations, that means moving from direct to retrograde or retrograde to direct, it becomes key. And the fact that both Venus and Mercury were the last of the planets, as you went through last summer and into the autumn, we had Pluto, Neptune, Uranus, Saturn, Jupiter, all retrograde, the heavyweights. And that often is a time when we just culturally, things are moving slower. And those planets are now moving fast or moving forward. And now Venus and Mercury are too. So I would expect over the rest of February, the last 3 quarters of February and on into March, I expect to see a lot of progression into whatever it is that's new. Now, the question is, what is it that will be new? I don't have the answer to that, but I do know that things are going to really pick up in speed. And we may see that that over the weekend at Conscious Life Expo.
Well, that seems like positive news to me. Right? I mean,
I would take it that way. But again, positive and negative are really about how we react to something. To say that it is a rainy day is a terrible piece of negative news to the person who has gotten on an airplane, flown to San Diego, has their suntan lotion in hand and wanted to go to the beach. But it's a fantastic day for the ducks because the damn humans won't be there.
Right.
And so they have the beach to themselves. So we have to be careful about what's good and bad because things are not universally positive or negative. It depends on how they impact our lives and what we're going to do about it or with it.
Now, that answers leading out of February. Before we head to the break, just leading into the summer, how do you see things?
Well, and before we get any further, I should just mention here also that aside from looking at these long-term cycles, which I will in just a second, I also write a daily astrological reflection. It's available on Instagram, Instagram.com/Rick Levine Astrologer, Rick Levine Astrologer. And so following those day-to-day things, the fluctuations can be quite significant from one day to another day. But then when we look at the overall cycles, we see kind of a different energy. And I think that the energy that we're seeing over the next couple of months is an energy of moving forward and feeling more and more like we're leaving something behind us, which for a lot of people, that's going to be really good. Not for everyone. But I also feel like the new moon in March, I think it's March 3rd or 4th, I think is going to be a powerhouse of a few days around disclosure. And I say disclosure, I don't know whether that's going to be alien disclosure, economic disclosure, political disclosure, personal. I don't know. It's just that the amount of energy around that, I think ultimately is positive. But you look at what's happening in the world, there's always other things. And so it's hard to say good news, bad news. But I know that there's going to be a lot of progression moving forward. And by the time we get to later in the summer, I think we're going to feel like we're slipping back into 2020, 2021 again. I think some of the same arguments and discussions will feel irresolvable. Mm-hmm. And we may feel like, oh no, we're never going to get out of this. I'm reminded of Bob Dylan's line, stuck inside of Mobile with the Memphis Blues again. And the last line of the song is something about, I don't know how many times I have to go through this, to get out of here. I know I just ruined his lyrics completely, but it's that kind of feeling where it's like, oh mama, can this really be the end? Stuck inside of Mobile with the Memphis Blues again. I don't think we're through this yet, but I think that things really do lighten up. And I think a lot of it is about people's individual attitudes. I mean, you nailed it earlier on. We're all exhausted with the crap, we just, we want to move forward, whatever that means, but moving forward means different things to Bob and Bill.
Yeah, well, now I'm going to ask you, Rick, to stay over for overtime because I want to discuss time when we come back. And I saved this for last. We might dabble into Einstein. But I agree with you. We're all exhausted, but I think that the relief that everybody would love to have is at least a sense of knowing what direction we're going in. Because it's just been blind, right? Just without that sense. If we just had direction in front of us, I think we'd be much better off. This is Fade to Black. I'm your Jimmy Church. We're going to do overtime with Rick Levine. You saw this coming. I'll be right back. Stay with us.
Listening to Jimmy Church and Fade to Black on the X.
Hey, what up, y'all? It's your girl Vivica Fox here, and you are listening to my boy, Jimmy Church, on JimmyChurchRadio.com.
Despite popular opinion, reading a book will not make you smarter.
But listening to Jimmy Church will.
This is Jimmy Church, and I personally invite you to the 2022 Conscious Life Expo this February 4th through the 7th, live at the LAX Hilton in Los Angeles, California. This year, we have the most exciting speakers, including Linda Moulton Howe, Jacques Vallée, Whitley Strieber, Adam Apollo, Billy Carson, Daryl Anka and Bashar, William Henry, Caroline Corey, Susan Slaughter, Daniel Brinkley, Sarah Breskman Cosme, George George Norrie, Gail Thackeray, and many, many more. I will be hosting all weekend long, including the keynote Ancient Secrets panel on Friday night. 5 vendor and exhibit halls, 3 floors of speakers, panels, and celebration. This is the biggest event of the year, and early bird passes are available now. Just go to ConsciousLifeExpo.com for the schedule, speakers, and information. That's ConsciousLifeExpo.com. This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and I take Life Change Tea supplements every single day. It's what I do. Click on their banner at jimmychurchradio.com.
Are you ready to read about true paranormal events? Unex Media publishes nonfiction books about UFOs, ghosts and haunted places, time anomalies, cryptid creatures, and more. Just like KUNXDB Radio, it's all about unexplained phenomena. Visit www.unxmedia.com to see our list of great book titles by Debbie Ziegelmeyer, Gene Walker, Devin Listrom, Wayne Lawrence, Bill Spicer, and yours truly, Margie Kay. That's unxmedia.com.
When you take the beans from Central America with dashes of Indonesian and African mixed in and then roast it to the dark side of Fade to Black, you create the ultimate brew of fringe. Introducing the Fade to Black blend from River Moon Coffee. Yes, River Moon's darkest customized roast was created for the love of Fade to Black. The alchemy of masterful roasting and smoking the beans is in every sip of this full-bodied, dark Java. I need my coffee dark, deep, with distinct bittersweet chocolate highlights, just like the bunker. Leaning further into the darkness of the roast is Fade to Black blend from River Moon Coffee. Just click on the banner at jimmychurchradio.com and use the promo code F2B Blend for 15% off of your order today.
This is Billy Carson with ForbiddenKnowledge.tv. Forbidden Knowledge TV has just reached its 1-year anniversary. That's right, 1 year. And as a show of appreciation, we are giving all new subscribers a free 30-day trial of ForbiddenKnowledge.tv. That's 30 days to binge watch thousands of movies, documentaries, conferences, workshops, lectures, yoga classes, meditation courses, and so much more. So log on to ForbiddenKnowledge.tv from your computer or mobile device, or get the Forbidden Knowledge TV app on Apple TV, Roku, Amazon, iTunes, or Google Play today, and use coupon code 30daysfree. That's coupon code 30 days free on ForbiddenKnowledge.tv today.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
This is Kristen, Erica, Brittany, Gabby, and you're listening to JamieChurchRadio.com.
It's not a lifestyle we chose. We were born this way.
This is KJCR at JimmyChurchRadio.com.
All right, welcome back. Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, Rick Levine is with us. Heading into overtime. What a great conversation tonight. And just watching some of the comments that are going around on the net. And I think that everybody has figured out that I've learned a few things tonight, Rick. And I appreciate that part of it. But I'm just going to let you know that you and I are going to spend a few days together. I'm going to get one of those shirts. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I'm going to try to pull that off. And maybe I'll trade you. Why don't we barter? Can we barter? Can I barter my way into a Rick Levine's? Is it possible? Okay, you're muted. You're muted. Something is muted on your end.
Sorry about that. Nothing is impossible, but let's just say it's highly unlikely.
We're about the same size. We're about this. I think that there is.
I wear extra small. What do you wear?
Oh no,
I'm kidding. Totally kidding.
Now, on Monday, you're going to do a post-conference presentation on time, and I think
that'll be one of three. I'm doing 3 different post-conferences. That's one of them.
That's
Correct.
one of them, and it is one of the most interesting subjects that we can get into, and I mean, as a planet, certainly as the audience here likes to discuss, because you can't get any scientist or physicist or intellectual to two of them to agree on what time is, and that is what I find most intriguing, because I have my own versions of time. What is your version of time?
Let me just, before I answer that, just throw in one quick thing, something you closed with about where are we going? Where do we go from here?
Right.
And I just wanted to say just very briefly that we can't know where we're going until we know where we are. And that's all. I mean, that's another whole conversation. But we had to have the discussion of where we are going is futile if we don't know where we've come from and we don't know where we are. And those may be some of the things that we're having to relearn that may take us to some other, of these larger, disclosure related issues. But it's just another point. My definition of time is pretty straightforward, and is this: time is created by the revolution of something around a greater center.
Correct. I agree with that. I agree with that. I agree. Okay. Now, I'm going to stop you there for a second and say this. Last week on the show, and then last night I had an AMA, and this subject came up once again. It comes up all the time. And I just said time like 3 times in a sentence. But here's the deal with that. Because, and an astrologer of all understands this concept probably more than anybody. A year, 1 lap around the sun, right there, and dividing that up, and we get it down to hours, minutes, seconds, days, and so forth. That is just because of our revolution. Now, to ET, what is their concept of time? Well, I don't know how many days or whatever their lap around their celestial body is. I don't know what that is, but that same measurement has to be relative to them to fit math and physics throughout the universe. You've got to work that into your daily life, whatever it may be. Their concept of time and ours cannot be the same unless they do 365 days around their sun with a leap year thrown in.
365.24.
Right.
Anyhow, what you're talking about is something that people don't think about, and that's called chronocentricity. We think of the big change going from geocentricity, the Earth is the center, and this is what Galileo spent 30 years, one Saturn cycle, 30 years under house arrest for, because he claimed that the Earth actually was moving and the sun wasn't going around the Earth was going around the sun. Well, this thing called the Copernican revolution, which was really a result of Copernicus and Galileo and Kepler and Newton and many other people, is the shift of thinking that we don't live on a stationary Earth with everything going around it. The Earth is not the center. The sun is the center. But then we learned that the sun is really just a rather unremarkable star on the far edge of the Sagittarian arm of this galaxy that's 1 in a trillion galaxies. And to go and say the age of the universe is 18 billion years old doesn't mean anything to anyone unless they live on this little planet around this little unremarkable sun at the edge of this really not very extraordinary galaxy of which there are trillions of. And so and people go, well, no, time is time. You know, this is the great fallacy of Isaac Newton. I always call it Newton's clock, tick tock, tick tock. Every second was the same. It was like a water wheel with time flowing through it, and that a second was the same. And Einstein destroyed that concept when he theoretically showed and later experimentally validated that as something accelerates toward the speed of light, time slows down until it stops. So that in itself is a mind bender, but I don't want to stop there just right yet. I want to talk about chronocentricity. And if you think if that's such a big deal, ask someone who lives in Switzerland, or get a sense of someone who lives in Switzerland and what their understanding of time is, and then go 50 miles to the south and go to northern Italy and ask someone what their sense of time is. One's sense of time is mechanical and precise and exacting, so much that Swiss watches, Swiss clocks. In fact, in modern times, the Swiss ephemeris is the timekeeping thing that astrologers use all over the planet. And in Italy, to get a train to come close to being exact on time anywhere is crazy, because in Italy, time is emotional. You know, it's a different sense of time just by a couple of 100 miles of distance. And so the idea that for us, time is measured by the planets, and it's not just the Earth going around the sun, although that is what measures a year. We also, as I mentioned at the very beginning, Mercury goes around the sun 4 times a year, once for each season. You know, that the interrelationship between the movement of the various planets all have their own cycles, their own way of expressing the energy, but they're all objects that are going around something else in a form that makes that repeat. And this is the basis of music. Pythagoras, who gave us the 12-note scale, with the 7 natural notes and the 5 black, or chromatic notes, that this 12-note scale was created by a guy who understood that everything in the universe was vibrating, and that no vibration can arise by itself. Every vibration arises in sympathy or harmony with other vibrations. And that the way we measure a vibration is how many times does the cycle complete itself in a given measured unit of time. And so we think of music, for example, as 440 or 432 cycles per second. That's a particular note that we can hear with our ears. But, like I said earlier, Saturn is a revolution of something around a center, and its time is 3 beats per century, roughly. Not quite, but about that. And so the actual time itself is a form of living, breathing, repeatable cycles that are measured just like we measure music. And that's why the whole geometry of astrology and the geometry of chromatics in music, you have cycles of fourths and fifths in music. Right. You're dividing rhythms up by frequencies to get other notes. I think the future of astrology will largely be in that realm of mathematical harmonic manipulation that we just don't have the tools yet, although we're getting there.
Why is sense of time different for everybody? And I think that we know this. I mean, it's been measured in laboratories. There's no question about that. But for me, and it has to be the same for everybody else, I would think largely, that 2020 and 2021 nearly didn't exist, that we blasted through those years. It happened in the blink of an eye. And
as we were going through them, it felt like March never ended.
That's right. Why isn't that incredible?
Well, that's the paradox Albert Einstein was once asked, "Can you explain relativity to me, like really simply?" And he said, "Yes, I can." He said, "Did you ever notice that putting your hand on a hot stove for a second feels like a minute, but being with a beautiful woman for an hour feels like a minute?"
Well said.
And poor Albert had his own issues with women that we don't want to necessarily touch here. But the fact of the matter is that in the realm of Newton's clock, where time was an independent variable, that you could do a physics experiment and that things would be unchangeable whether you did the experiment on January 3rd at 3 a.m. or on July 18th, 5 years later at midnight, that time was independent of the physical things that occurred. This is like one of the basic concepts of physics and chemistry, is that an experiment, to be scientific, can be validated by doing it again and again and again, and time does not impact these experiments. Unfortunately, that's turned out to be not true.
Mm-hmm.
That time itself does have quality, not just measurable quantity. And it's like there are times in our lives, forget about the joint shared things that we all have, the major cultural events, the bombing of Hiroshima, or the assassination of Kennedy, or the World Trade Tower bombing, or whatever it is. We experience these moments together. But then in our own individual lives, we have years where we can barely remember what happened. Yeah, I was doing this then and blah, 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 blah. And then we have other times in our life where all hell breaks loose, and day by day, week by week, month by month, for a year or so, everything is in flux and everything changes. And there's something about the nature of time that the more events that are squeezed into whatever this thing is that we call time, the longer it seems, the more complicated it is. But that when we're on the far side of it, our perception of it changes. I think that there's one other wonderful thought here that came to me from another astrologer many years ago, and that is, we don't move through time. Time moves through us.
Expand on that, because I love it.
It's just that there's this moving landscape that we call time, but it's an internal processing that scientists agree with the mystics who say that linear time, that is a timeline, I was born here, I died here, that thing, that whole idea of measuring time on a timeline, history, is basically a figment of having an old reptile brain, the Abdullah Melangata, the part of the brain that gives us that sense of cause and effect. And that cause and effect really is something that is an illusion that exists within a certain frequency of things. In our world that we live in, there are certain things that are cause and effect that we can expect. If I take a cell phone and drop it, it'll land on the ground, and if the ground's hard, it'll break. That's a cause and effect. But if I go into the microcosmic world, things don't have that same cause and effect. This is part of the problem that scientists began to deal with, to try to understand when they started measuring the movement of these subatomic things. They didn't know what they were, but they weren't conforming to the Newtonian mechanics of, if these two things bump together, one should go that way and one should go that way. And the whole indeterminacy of quantum physics basically took that whole idea of cause and effect and turned it on its ear. So much to the fact that there is question now in modern physics about, can time move in two directions?
Right.
There's a study in physics called retrocausality.
Yep.
This is going to sound crazy, but retrocausality is the scientific study of how the future impacts the present.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell clients all the time, well, you can't change the future, you can only change the past. And they go, that's crazy. What do you mean? You can't change the past. That's fixed. I go, well, tell me about your belief in Santa Claus when you were 3 years old or 5 years old, or about your belief of Columbus as a hero until you discovered a different perception. You've altered history. History is not the same as it was. History only exists in the present moment as a construct of consciousness in this moment. Now, the great mystics will tell us, from Catholic Christian mysticism to Buddhism to Hinduism, they will tell us that in the non-physical realm, everything that ever existed and everything that ever will exist exists now. We just get a slice of it as we move through it.
I am having the craziest deja vu right now. Right now. I mean, like the craziest deja vu. Right now. It's insane. Okay. And in this deja vu, I asked this question, and now I cannot stop myself from doing it because the deja vu is going to play itself out. And the question is this: how can we slow down time? How can we slow down the moment?
Well, again, I would come back to that Buddhist concept that I said earlier, that you said earlier, and that is awareness.
Right.
That the only thing we can change is our awareness. And our awareness can, in fact, change time. It can slow it down so that a kung fu master, a Bruce Lee, can move at speeds that are incomprehensible. We can't even imagine. And yet that brain has been practiced and trained to slow time down enough. It's like Neo in the Matrix, that scene where he's just kind of relaxed, just kind of, meeting every punch that comes in, because the sense of time has changed. And that's about awareness. When we panic, when we're frightened, when we're worried, time speeds up. And we don't have enough time to think about or to react, or we react and we don't have enough time to think about how we might want to respond. Whereas the master, whatever that might be in whatever discipline, the master is the person who can be in that same heightened, crazy situation and yet move at a speed that's calm and relaxed and deal with everything, because in that person's mind, time has been altered. Time doesn't exist out there. The planetary movement does, but how we respond to it exists in here.
So if I'm understanding you correctly, and I appreciate this too, I just had this moment. If we have more awareness, more experiences, then time would slow down. Something as basic as don't sleep as much and have more hours in your day, for instance?
I would like to agree with that, but there's another factor at play, and that is when you're 5 years old, a summer vacation is like 1/4 of your entire life.
Yeah, that is correct. Yes.
And when you're 70 years old, a summer vacation is like correspondent to what an afternoon would be when you're 4 or 5.
That is correct.
And so there's something also that's the opposite, and that's the closer we get to death, the faster time goes.
And that's an interesting point, because when you're 5 years old, 3 months, your summer vacation is a big chunk of your life, right? Waiting for Christmas.
Or waiting for your next birthday is forever.
Right, is 1/4 of your life, right?
Yeah, right. Now it's like, tick, I had my last birthday. Tick, I had another one. Geez, it's like they feel like they're coming once a month.
So there must be a way to slow it down. So what do we do? Do we have birthdays every 5 years?
Does that slow it down?
Yeah, would that slow it down if I had to wait 10 years for my next birthday? Yeah, very interesting. So much information tonight, Rick. I mean, now you just mentioned you do your daily stuff on IG. How often?
Right, and that's Instagram.com/Rick Levine Astrologer.
And what about YouTube? How often do you get that done?
Well, I do a monthly report that's about an hour long, and that's free. That's always on. That's youtube.com/Rick Levine, no astrologer. But I do a lot of other YouTube stuff by subscription that I do through Patreon. And that's for people who want to dig deeper. I do weekly stuff. I do interviews. I do online chart interpretation. I have an apprentice program. So I'm doing a lot of stuff online that's not for the wider public. If you're more interested in digging deeper into astrology, then that stuff is for you. I also do a lot of stuff with a site called Astrology Hub, theastrologyhub.com. And I have courses in the fundamentals of astrology through Astrology Hub. I do an every other week talk show interview with the founder of Astrology Hub. And they're all available online. We've talked about stuff like, reincarnation, which is one of my topics that I'll be talking about at the Whole Life Expo, and it'll be a very different take on reincarnation that anyone has ever heard. The title of the talk is actually Consciousness Con Carne.
You've got a full weekend. You've got your lecture on Saturday.
I do. They have me working.
Yeah, the astrology panel on Saturday, Sunday.
Is the Astrology Con Carne lecture.
Yep, and your WTF on Monday, Planets in Your Pocket on Monday, and
the Planets in Your Pocket is a fun one because normally in astrology we're reaching up and trying to understand what's up there, what's out there. It's that, and yet my contention is you don't have to know how to make a chart. You don't have to know where any planets are in your sign, in your own chart. But if you understand the archetypes, the basic archetypes of the planets, they're always in your pocket. And if you know how to reach into your pocket and pull Jupiter out when you need some confidence, or to pull Mars out when you need some ability to assert your energy, and you know the understanding of them, these planets are always there as helpers, and there are ways to access them. The planets in your pocket.
Thank you so much, Rick. I look forward to not only hanging out with you next weekend at the Conscious Life Expo, but our next conversation here on Fade to Black. Thank you so much. I learned so much tonight. What a great conversation.
It's been a real privilege. Thank you. It's fun. You're a good interviewer.
No, you're a great guest. But my dog Malcolm could have done this interview tonight. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Rick. Enjoy the rest of your night. Yeah, exactly. Rick Levine, stariq.com, by the way, and the links are over at jimmychurchradio.com. And just went bumper to bumper, pole to pole with Rick Levine tonight. Great conversation. Fade to Black is produced by Hilton J. Palm, Renee Dennis, and Kevin. Announcers are Steve Harder, Gene Vito, and Mark D. Kovar. Webmaster is Drew the Geek. Music, Doug Aldrich. Intro, Spaceboy. SpaceboyMusic.com. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Game Changer Network, and this broadcast is owned and copyrighted 2022 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network, Inc. It cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Fade to Black of the Game Changer Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Tomorrow night, right here, Giorgio Tsoukalos. Until then, I want everybody to be safe. It's time to fade to black.